This is a tutorial for the Farmhouse Market, the coupon slash recipe holder. I have a separate video that does a walkthrough. You'll be surprised at how easy of a tutorial or how easy of a book this is to make. This is a great one for a beginner. Check out my other video if you want to see the book that we'll be making. It does go really quickly. So I think it'll be a good gift giving project for you, maybe for the holidays or for a birthday. Let me just let you know ahead of time that when I do my tutorials, I do my measurements in the video. So if you want to have a notebook handy to write things down, that's probably a good idea. I don't type everything out just because of the time involved, and this is not my full-time job. So please have a notebook handy. I would also recommend that you watch it all the way through first, just in case I have a oops. I'm not very good at editing videos, so the oops would probably stay in the video, and then I'd have to fix it later. So I'm just warning you up front. To get started, we're going to make the cover, and this cover is the technique that I learned from Tammy Merrill from Country Craft Creations. She's the owner of the online store, and I am a design team member for her. So the materials I'm using you can purchase from her store. The first thing you're going to want to do is cut your chipboard, and you should be able to get all of this out of one 12 by 12 sheet of chipboard. You're going to want the front and back cover measure 6 by 9, and the spine is 2.5 by 6. So once you cut those out, you are going to want to put your adhesive on the back, and I am using score tape. These are the 1-inch strips, and I have a 3/8 in the middle, and then these are the score sheets. So they come in 8.5 by 11, and I just cut it in half and then filled in with my other, like my 1/4. If you have not used the score tape sheets, that is something you're going to want to try because they're pretty stinking helpful. Big time, they're a time consumer, time saver, big time. So to wrap our pieces, we're going to do the pieces individually, which might be different than what some of you are used to if you have not seen my videos before, Tammy's before. So to wrap these, you're going to want 3 pieces of paper. You're going to want one that's 4.5 by 8, and that's going to be for the spine, and then 2 that are 8 by 11, which is for the front and back cover. Again, we'll wrap those separately. So I'm going to start with the front and back cover. You're going to do them both the same way. I like to have a ruler handy because I measure 1 inch. When I lay down my chipboard, I'm going to measure 1 inch from the bottom and the side to make sure I center it. Some people like to use their scoreboard and use 1-inch strips with chipboard so that they can place it in the right spot. I'm kind of a creature. I stick to the way the things I usually do them. Even though this is handy, I have always used the other method, so that's what I'm using. So anyway, all right, so let's start with one of our covers. And I'm just going to place this down, and I have my grid on my board here, and I'm going to just try and make it straight. And then I place my ruler so that I have a 1-inch border, or it's at 1 inch. And I also line it up so that I start at 1 inch from the side. Excuse me. So this shifts a lot. Now that I have this glass cutting mat, which I like, it's slippery though. So when I do this, my ruler moves quite a bit. So I have to be careful. Now, if you don't get it exactly centered, that's not a big deal. And then I just use my poker tool here to get the backing off. And you can use glue if you want. I just know that this gives you a smoother cover when you use the score tape. When you use glue, sometimes you get ripples or you can see the glue marks through, and I don't like that. So, all right, so I'm going to double check my ruler here, and I can tell it's off. So let me, okay, that looks good. So I'm just going to hold that down 1 inch from the side, and it's 1 inch from the bottom. And just lay that down. And then I'm going to take my burnishing tool, which I have several of, and I'm just going to make sure that's on real well. So while we're at it, let's go ahead and do the other one the same way. Take the backing off. And I might just do one, show you how to do one cover on camera, being as it's done the same way, and then you can just pause the video and do both of yours. That way it saves time. I'll show you the spine you do differently. So, all right, so let me get my ruler ready. And 1 inch from the bottom, 1 inch from the side. So whenever you're making a cover, that's usually the standard. Give yourself a 1 inch border. Some people go a little bit less. Now if you're making a 12-inch book, that's a little bit different, but when you make a regular album, I like to do a 1 inch border on all sides. And then go ahead and burnish that. The paper I'm using is the Artisan cardstock, so it's a stronger paper. It is linen based. So when you see me burnishing and stuff, please know if you're not using Artisan to be careful, because other papers can maybe tear a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to bring up my chipboard and give it a natural score. And then I'm just going to fold that over and use my, I don't like this one, I'm just going to burnish that so that I have a strong mark that I can see. And I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. Just lift it up and over. And then score it, or not score it, burnish it well. Now this is going to make squares in the corner, which is going to guide us on what to cut to make sure that our chipboard is covered with no chipboard showing through the corners. Nothing worse in my eyes than seeing a cover that you can see the chipboard on the corners. That drives me crazy. And it's happened to me, believe me. So you have to be creative to cover it. This way, that doesn't happen as often, I don't feel, when you use this technique. So what you're going to do then is take your scissors and you're going to cut out the squares on the corners. So all 4, just go up to the chipboard piece and take out the square. And we'll do that on all 4 corners, like I said, up to the chipboard on both. On both of the score marks. Alright, so now we're going to want to clean up the edges a little bit so that when we fold our paper over, we don't have anything, like if you see that, there's some overhang that we don't want, just slightly. So what you're going to do is angle this, kind of rest your scissors up against the chipboard and just give it a slight angle. Now when you do the other side, I have to turn it over. Again, resting my scissors, and I cut at an angle. When I say rest my scissors are bumped up against my chipboard. So let's do that to the other sides. And you don't have to do your cover like this. If you like doing it where you combine the paper and do it in one sheet, that works too. Let's see, is that gonna... Ooh, that was close. That was real close to seeing my chipboard. Let's see, this one. And then this way. Did I get them all? Nope, this one. Okay, so just kind of double check that you got everything with no hangover. Get these little scraps out of the way, maybe. All right, so then I'm going to do my long sides first. Oh, I didn't do this piece. Okay, So I'm going to go ahead, and I still like to use score tape around the perimeter of my chipboard, just to make sure it's got a good hold when I fold it over. So I'm just going to use the 1/4 inch strip of score tape. Again, you can choose to just use glue. It's whatever your preference is. So I am making this during the coronavirus pandemic, and although it's kind of a scary time of unknowing and change and being careful, this is how I keep my mind at ease. I come in my basement and I craft, and I hope you guys are all finding something that you can do to kind of keep your mind occupied and not to worry. I have faith that everything will be fine. We just have to work some things out. So times are a little different right now. So I hope all of you are doing well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing. And I'll do that on 3 sides right now, so that when I bring my paper over, I don't accidentally cover that strip. And I will use glue then on the flap. So I'm going to use my art glitter glue. It's a strong hold, dries fast. And I'm going to run a bead along the edge of my chipboard. I say that, but my glue is clogged. Let me stick the pin in there real quick, clear it. Oops. If I can put it in there. There. Oh my gosh. I even have my readers on. Okay. A bead of glue. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill in glue on the 1-inch flap. And I'd rather use a hair too much than not enough, even though I'm sure I use more than I probably need to. Alright, so I'm just going to bring that up and over. And I like to have some dry wet wipes handy. So for any glue that starts to spill out, I can just wipe that up real easy. And then go ahead and just burnish that real well. And I do like to run it up against the edge so it's a nice flat edge. So you can see how clean, I hope you can see how clean that is. We'll do the same to the opposite side. So at the making of this video also, art glitter glue cannot be mailed when it's a certain temperature, when it's really cold. And so you have to stock up in the winter. I did hear that Tammy will be getting some in soon. So this is being recorded mid-March. So hopefully we'll be able to purchase that beginning of April maybe. She's good about following those guidelines. You might be able to find it at other places in the winter, but know that the consistency might not be the same. It might get a little watery or runny if they ship it in those really cold months. I've had that happen just being in my basement. It gets cold down here, and sometimes the consistency of the glue, if I'm not careful, can get a little watery. I still use it, but it's just not the same. Alright, so we're going to do the end pieces exactly the same. Now on the other way that you make the cover, you miter the corners, and then you have to check to make sure that you tuck in the corners so that you don't have any paper sticking out. That's one nice thing about this, is you don't have to tuck in those side pieces so that they don't buckle. This just comes up and over real nice. And then we burnish it real well. the cover is one of the things that gets the most wear and tear, so it's worth it to do it well and to take some extra time and put in the effort to make sure it's nice and sturdy and you use good supplies, I think. Nice. Yeah, my corners are not as good as they normally are. I wonder why. Okay, I mean the chipboard's still covered, but ooh, it's close. All right. Alrighty, up and over. And burnish the side. So you are going to do the other 6x9 piece the same way. I will do that one off camera so that you can, if you need to watch this again, you can just rewind it, but I don't, look at how nice and neat that looks. The corners are super crisp. Okay. All right, so you do the spine a little bit different. So the spine piece of paper again was 4.5 by 8. The actual spine piece is 2.5 by 6. So let's go ahead, and I already have the backing on my chipboard piece, and we're going to go ahead and lay it down just like we did on the other ones. Take the backing off here. I will tell you that I used to do the score tape along the outside and then glue on the inside to try and save money, because the art glitter glue really, it's a money saver, but I found that I like doing the score tape all the way around much better. It just has a smoother look to it. All right, so I'm at 1 inch on both bottom and the side. And just like before, just burnish it real well so it attaches nice and is smooth. So we're going to bend up the edges and burnish those. We do this piece a little bit different because this is going to be the piece that attaches all three, the front cover, the back cover, and the spine all together. So this one is done different. Now by using this cover method, your book also lies flatter, and that's a bonus. So if you like it when the book is more flat, then this is your way to go. Okay, so before we cut off the squares in the corner, now we're cutting off at a triangle on an angle. So when you see that square in the corner, you're not cutting off the whole thing. You're going to go from one end diagonal to the other and cut off a triangle from the top, the tip, like so. So I just took off part of that square, and do that on all 4 corners. So it's, we'll do the short sides that we fold over. These are going to be our connecting pieces. So we're going to end up putting this down and this down. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and put score tape just on the edges here so that when I fold it over it has a good stick. Again, you might choose not to do that. You can just use the glue. All right, so go ahead and remove the backing, and then we're going to place glue on this whole section, okay, and we'll fold it over. Go ahead and put that glue up against the chipboard just like before. Okay. Now I'm using a light blue paper. It looks probably white, but I don't know if you can see the glue, but I put it on that whole side. All right. And do the same thing to the other. Now, obviously, if you have seen this before, you can skip through this part, but I will tell you that if you're ever making a book and you're like, how did she do that cover again? Tammy Merrill has a tutorial where it's just the cover. So if you need a refresher, you can go to her channel. Her channel is Country Craft Creations. So let's bring that up and over. So because this piece will be the connecting piece and it will be folding the pages or the covers back and forth, we want to kind of train our paper. And so it will be, I'm going to go ahead and do some scoring on this side also, or burnishing. Just to kind of break the fibers a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that that paper is right up against the chipboard. Okay, so you can see it's a strong indentation. Okay, now this is a little bit, we don't want it all the way across because when we connect the two you might see this sticking out the top. So we are going to go ahead and miter slightly, and I just do it very slightly. So I'm just going to go ahead and rest my scissors up against the chipboard and just lightly taper. See how I just took a little piece off? Okay, now I'm going to do that on this side too. I'm just going to rest my scissors on my chipboard and lightly taper. Alright, so there is our spine piece and our connecting piece. So let me go ahead and wrap my other cover, and then I'll be back to show you how we combine the three pieces together. All three pieces of chipboard are covered. These flaps that attach the two long pieces, you're going to end up gluing that to the inside. Like so, but to do that we end up flipping, we're going to flip it over to glue it just so that we can line everything up. So I'm just going to work with one piece right now, and I'm going to place glue on this flap on the right, and then I'm going to lay this piece on top and butt it up against the chipboard, and you're going to see a slight ridge where the two pieces meet, and that's okay. Let's go ahead and let me just make sure that I have this. Okay, so place glue here, and again I'm going to be generous with the glue. And just butt it up against there. You can go right up to the other piece of chipboard. Just make sure you're eyeballing it to make sure it's lined up top and bottom. And I'm going to press down, and then I'm going to flip it over and start burnishing that piece down. Okay, I'm going to burnish, push down on this side. Alright, so let's do the other side the same way. I'm going to turn it upside down. I'm going to place glue on here and then attach this by butting it right up against there. So you can see it's going to be a book that lays flat. The things that we're adding to the book, it won't be as flat, but better than the old technique, which I still use. Okay. Line it up, look at the top and the bottom. And let's start burnishing that. Let's give that a chance to dry. Now we are going to want to look at that. Perfect. All right, so let's let it dry. Let's work on the hinge next. Now this is only one hinge. And I'm just using a 6x6 piece of paper. Nope, I want it 5 7/8 by 6. Hold on. I'll have to trim this. We don't want, our book is 6 inches tall, so we want this to be 5 7/8 inches tall. So make it 5 7/8 by 6. Let me trim that. This looks, did I measure this right? This doesn't look 6 by 6. 6. It's not 6 by 6 1/4. Huh. I didn't measure it right anyway. So let's make sure that's 6. Okay. So the 5 7/8 inch side is how tall you want it to be. And I'll show you. So we're going to end up putting it here. So if it was 6 inches, it might be 2. Oh, this still, do I have it the wrong way? Goes this way. Okay. So we want one hinge smack dab in the middle, because when we have our boxes on the sides here, when we close this, if our hinge is in the way, our page won't be in the right spot. So this is 2.5 inches. So I'm going to get, when I lay this down, I'm going to make sure that I have a ruler so I can find exactly the center when I lay it down. Now this is going to be longer, so it kind of goes off to the side here. Let's get our scoreboard. And let's see. I want the 5 7. That's 5 7/8 across. Okay, so you want your 6 inches across the top as we score this. 6 inch across the top. And let me see. We're going to score at 2.5, 3, and 3.5. That's just for one hinge with long wings on the side. So let's go ahead and burnish those score marks. Oopsie. If you're like me, you have a bunch of different bone folders. All right, so there's the one hinge. So we're going to place glue on the inside to keep that closed so that we can attach a page to it. Sure it burnishes real well. Get that glue in there. All All right, so we are going to place this like so. So you have about a 1/16 of an inch on the top and a 1/16 of an inch space on the bottom. And I want this centered. So I'm going to place my ruler. This has that Tim Holtz one so that it's 0. And let's see. So it's 1 1/4. 1. I need to move it here this way. Okay, so I'm going to place glue on here, and then I'm going to make sure that when I lay this down, I have the hinge right in the center. So that's why my ruler's there. I'm just going to use art glitter glue, and yeah, do I want glue or do I want? I'll use glue. And I'm just going to put glue around the perimeter and then fill in the inside also. We don't want this going anywhere. Okay, generous glue. All right, so let's make sure that we get that. All right, and burnish that puppy down. And I'm going to let this dry before I bend it. Maybe not. I'll play it by ear. Let me see what I did. All right, so once you burnish it real well, I mean real well, then I'm going to start bringing up the side and making that paper go into the fold. Be careful with your bone folder, again depending on what paper you're using. Now we're going to end up putting paper on top of this, but I still want it down as well as it will go. Okay. And on this side, I'm going to turn it around. Alright, so start bringing it up into that fold. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is place our 2 flaps, because you want to put the flaps down before you put your decorative paper on here. So this goes to the side. You're going to need 2 pieces. Where's it at? There it is. You're going to need 2 pieces that measure 7 5/8 by 8 7/8. So our book is 9 inches long, so we want the 8 7/8 inches. That's going to be the width of our paper. So to score it then, you need to turn it the opposite direction. So you want the 7 5/8 inches across the top. We have 2 score marks to make. Now you're going to make 2 of these at 1/2. And then again at 1 5/8. So have your paper write that down. At 1/2, we're going to score again the 7 5/8 is across the top. 1/2. Oops, my finger was in the way. And then again at 1 5/8. Now that's a pretty thick hinge here, but when you put your decorative paper on the top and the bottom, it makes it much more sturdy. So do that to both pieces, and then burnish those score marks. Okay, so it should look like that. And when you place this in your book, you want it to go as far to the top as possible. So I'm going to kind of hold it down and make sure that it's the right length, so that if you have to trim it a little bit, you can. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and glue that 1/2 inch strip down. You know what? You might want to paper. Okay, here's my first mistake. I should have put my decorative paper on first, but because this isn't the actual book, I might make mine a little bit different. So you should probably put your designer paper on both the front and the back first. That would be my suggestion. I mean, you can still do it after you attach it to the book. It's just sometimes easier. Make sure it's the same. Okay, looks good. And then just bring it up and burnish that down. Anytime you can paper your cardstock before you lay it down, it's usually easier than trying. So, I mean, it'll still be easy to put your paper and, get it flat, but I don't know. It's up to you, I guess. Okay, so you can see that that's going to be, it'll be that way on both sides then. And that's why it's important that our hinge is in the middle, so that it doesn't get in the way of those flaps. Okay, so do the other one on the other side. Now this is the point where you would put your pattern paper that you want down here. I usually go 1/8 of an inch smaller, so if it's 6 by 9, I would go 5 7/8 by 8 7/8 for my paper. Again, I'm not going to do that on camera. This is just a practice book or a tutorial book. Okay, so you'll have both. So let's move on to the card holder, the note card holder. I had someone ask what size note cards. I had Googled standard size or the standard measurements of a note card, and they said 3 by 5. So I'm not sure. Let's see. Let's see how big of a note card this will hold. It's 4 inches across and about 5 1/4 long. So 4 by 6 wouldn't work. So you might want to, I don't know. I thought of a standard size note card when I made mine. 2 pieces of paper you're going to need for each of the boxes. So you're going to make a total of 4 of these. So you're going to want 4 each of these measurements. So 4 of them at 7 1/4 by 5 3/4, and 4 of them that are 3 5/8 by 5 3/4. That's a 3/4. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. I'm just going to make 1. They're very easy to make. Now I used magnets on mine. If you choose not to do magnets, you can put a piece of ribbon on the back. I'll show you in a second to close yours if you don't have magnets. So, all right, so take your larger piece and you're going to score it 1 inch on 4 sides. So the box is 1 inch deep. Okay, and while we have our scoreboard out, take the smaller piece and we're going to score at 1 inch on 3 sides. So you're going to have your long side across the top, score at 1 inch, turn it, score at 1 inch, and then turn it one more time, excuse me, at 1 inch. Okay, so this one only gets scored on 3 sides. Let's do the base first. So get your scissors. Let me get a drink of coffee here real quick. Okay, straight up on the score, and then we're going to taper. So once you've cut that slit up to the first score mark, I want you to take a slight taper on that square on each side, just a slight one. This piece stays straight. This one you angle. So cut up straight and then angle to the right. So again, cut up straight on that score mark and then angle it for the tab on each side. So there's 2. You need to see that. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. I got to trim this. Okay, straight to the score mark and taper. Okay, so that's what that looks like. You're gonna be amazed at how easy this is. All right, go ahead and burnish. Boxes are really easy to make. And again, once you put pattern paper on here, it's going to make it a lot more sturdy. So I want to glue my tabs to the outside because we're going to cover it with paper anyway. So I'm going to put my tab to the outside. That kind of covers up where the seam where the 2 pieces meet. If you want to do yours on the inside, that's fine. But like sometimes you can see that, and I don't like that. I don't like to see that meeting. So I'm going to put mine on the outside. Okay. So just put some glue on the tabs. And this is a shallow enough box that you don't have to put your pattern paper on first. You can if you want to, but it's easy to put it on afterwards too, because you can just, once you glue it on, just tip it to the side and then burnish it. So you can do it ahead of time if you want, but be careful because you still have to put the door on, and you don't want to put your pattern paper on on the inside before you do the door. We also won't need to put any paper on the bottom because that's going to be attached to the book. So that'll save us some paper. Make sure you go all the way, make sure they meet nice at the corner. And then I'm just going to tip it up and burnish real well so that it sticks. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And turn it up and make sure it sticks. So there's the base. Now this is when I would go ahead and put pattern paper in here. So I usually don't have the measurements for the pattern paper because some people like to do it 1/8 of an inch smaller, some do a 1/4 of an inch. But if your box is 4 inches wide, I would go 3 7/8. And our box is 5 1/4, so I would go 5 1/8 long. Okay, don't do the insides yet. You can do the outsides, so 5 1/8 by 7/8, because if this is 1 inch, you'd go 7/8 of an inch tall. Okay, so you can paper the outside 4 sides and the inside middle, but don't do the sides here yet. So now let's work with the door. So let's go ahead and burnish those score marks. Okay, so we're going to do this one a little bit different. We are going to take out the square in the corner, and we're going to angle on each side. So angle up. So it's just on the outside of the score mark. So you can see I angled it. I didn't cut right on the score marks. Do that to the other piece also. Oh, wrong. Over here. Okay, so it looks like so. If you want, you can go ahead and put your pattern paper here and here before you glue it down. I'm not going to do that because it's just a sample. Oh, shucks. I made a mistake. Okay, I hope you watch this first. I don't like this. Nope, I screwed up. Don't. Okay, I told you to watch first. I told you. We don't want these angled. We want these straight. Darn it. Let me show you. Let me get a piece of... Oh, sassafras. Hold on, let me cut another piece of paper. Okay, hopefully I remember to put a note on this when I upload it to... Wait, stop. Okay, so this one, you do want to go straight up on the line and only taper this side, and I'll show you here in a second. Okay, so straight up on this line, taper on that side. Straight up on this line, taper so that the door closes good. Okay, so these are straight. Sorry if you messed up because of my mistake. It happens, people. It happens. Okay, so like I said, I would put pattern paper here and here. Now you're going to glue this to the base of your box. Okay, so that it can open and close like so. And then we'll have magnets, or you can use your seam binding or whatever to keep it shut. So you're going to place glue on the bottom to attach it to the main box. And make sure you shove it in there as far back as it'll go. And burnish it down. Okay. So it's at this point then that I would decide, obviously, magnets or seam binding. So if you did seam binding, you would go ahead and pattern your paper. Let me get some here. All right, so if you're not going to use magnets, you are going to want to take your seam binding or your ribbon and glue a piece near the bottom on the back so that you can tie it shut like so. Now that would be cute also. I mean, I was just worried that if I had a tie here, my book might not close as nicely, so that's why I went flat and used magnets, but that could be an option. Okay, so if you're going to do magnets, I don't like to have too many layers of paper in between my magnets because then I feel like it really loses some of its magnetism. So what I would do is I would place, I've done it two ways. I didn't want, my magnets are really thin. So because my magnets are thin, I'm going to place one, I'm going to place it on the outside and then here on the inside. If you have thick magnets, you're going to want to put one on the inside and then one on the inside of the box. So I'm going to place mine on the outside flat because mine are thin. If yours are thick, place it on the inside. That way I'll have less layers of paper in between. Okay, so let me get, these are just some cheapo magnets I had on hand. I usually use basic gray from Tammy's store, and you're going to need two, actually you'll need 4 for each box if you're doing it this way. So these don't have adhesive on the back, so I'm going to go ahead and place a small piece of score tape on this one, and I'm going to place it on my box where it will towards the center so that the paper will lay down flat on either side. If you put it too close to the edge, your paper won't lay down nice. So let me take off the backing of the score tape. And I'm going to put mine near the center. Actually, I'm going to put it closer to the top, I think, so that it stays, it looks a little, it closes a little bit better, I think, that way. About right. Oh, get up there. Okay, so that's where I put mine. You can put yours more towards the center if you want. So now, because mine are thin, I'm going to put the other one on the inside, and then I'll cover it with paper. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to put the other magnet on it, put a little piece of score tape on there, remove the backing, so fold in where, make sure it would be closed, and then press on that magnet so that the tape sticks to the other piece and it can be separated. So see, it stayed on there. So now what I do, just so that I don't have any movement, is I take the 1/8 score tape and just place a piece on top so it's secure. I say that, but I can't find the edge of my, there it is. And I don't think all people do this, but I like to just put a little bit of tape like so over my magnet. And I would do the same thing on the inside. I cut this one too long, but. And then just make sure you take the backing off before you put your designer paper. So that will keep your box closed. Now, after you do the other side the same way, then you can pattern paper your sides. Okay. Now, this, you'll do 4 of these. And then you will have your pattern paper already here. And then I just used art glitter glue, and I placed 2 boxes. I made sure it wasn't too close to the edge, and I had to make sure that it didn't go too far over this way, so just make sure that you space them out well, and that helps keep this tighter too. Okay, so that's that, and you guys, we're getting close to being done. This is an easy project. So now we need to make the page, and it is just a very basic page. Now it's just a sleeve. Make 4 of these, remember. So let me show you. This is just one just one page, and I have a booklet on the inside that I can write down grocery lists or recipes or whatever. So super, super easy. Ready? Here we go. Time to score. So there's 2 pieces. Let me put the pin in my glue so it doesn't get dry. Okay, the 2 pieces you're going to need are 7 by 8 7/8 and one that's 6 by 8 7/8. Okay, take the larger piece, that's 7, and you want the 7 inches across the top, and you're going to score at 1/2 and at 6.5. And that's all the scoring you have to do. Burnish those score marks, score lines. And then you're going to take your 6-inch piece and you're just going to attach it on the top like so. Okay, and that makes an open, it's, will be open on each end. So I'm going to do one side at a time. So I'll put glue just on 1/2 inch piece. Okay, and I'm going to line up this piece on top. So the nice thing about the glue is you'd have a little bit of wiggle room time if you need to adjust. And then open it up and burnish it. And then if things work out well, when you put your glue on this one, it should line up perfectly. So glue on the next tab. And bring it over. So the question is, do you decorate before you attach to the hinge? I say yes. So before you attach this to your book, I would put my pattern paper on, and remember mine had these pockets. Now I have a die that made these pockets, but I guess I could show you real quick on how to make a pocket, but I just cut mine out with my die. But I would put my pattern paper on in my pocket before I attach it to the hinge. Okay, I also put pattern paper on the hinge pieces before I attached it too. So I went ahead and put pattern paper here also. So if I would put pattern paper here and then put the side pieces on. Okay, so next, pattern paper. Then you're going to place your pocket on. So my pockets, I don't even know. Things I have a die, I didn't measure them. My pockets are 5 by 4. So let me show you how to make a pocket real quick. I didn't think about this when I was giving you the paper measurements. Okay, so if our pocket is 4 inches across, we need a 5-inch piece of paper. And if it was 5 inches tall, I'm going to go an inch down, 9. So do 5 by 9. Let me cut this. Hold on, let me get it ready. Okay, I'm ready. Again, this is 5 inches across, 9 inches long. Place the 5 inches across the top of your board, score at 1/2 inch and 4.5 inches. So you have a 1/2 inch on each end. And then on the 9-inch side, I want you to score at 5 inches. Okay, let's go ahead and fold this and burnish it. And let's cut this before we burnish the 2 side pieces. Okay, you're going to want to take off these long pieces right here. So I'm going to cut on just on the inside of that raised bump to the score mark. Okay, so you have this. Then I'm going to taper it. I'm going to go off at an angle, like so. Taper the other end, like so. Same on the other side. Cut up to the score. You're taking that long rectangular piece off, not the short one. Once you get to the score mark, angle it and angle the top. Now let's go ahead and burnish those 1/2 inch sides. Okay. So the way it is now, it's squared. So if you want a rounded top, you have a corner rounder. Okay, so there's your library pocket. I would glue it down, and then you don't need a full piece of paper to cover this inside. You'll just want to cut one that is 3 7/8 inches across, and you probably only need about a 2-inch strip, and then you could just tuck it down inside so you don't waste paper. So that's how you make the pockets, and I made 2 of these. Okay. All right, so that is the tutorial. If it helps, look at the walkthrough of the book so that you can take a look to see how I decorated it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. Again, let me just do a quick, here's the inside. Anything you put on this flap, you want it to be flat. When you open it, I have the place for the picture, the 2 boxes. On the other side, again, a pocket. This has to be flat. This needs to be pretty flat too, otherwise your book won't close nice. Okay. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I really believe that it's an easy beginner project. Good luck with it. Let me know if you have questions. Take care of yourselves, you guys. Stay healthy, and I hope to see you soon at a retreat for Country Craft Creations. Enjoy your day, everybody.